Today on Investigate TV Plus, exploiting a loophole in the law to steal homes and make off with the money. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich, an in-depth look at deed fraud and why it's difficult to stop.
Plus, rising sea levels put coastal communities at risk.
You gotta start by fortifying your defenses along your coastline.
How a natural barrier could offer a solution.
Then the meaning behind this manicured lawn goes much further than a hobby.
It's probably not to over dramatize it or whatever, but probably saved my life.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. Losing your home to thieves might be easier than you think, thanks to outdated laws in states across the country.
It's a type of fraud known as deed theft. It's one Robert Elder knows about all too well. He owned his home in Atlanta since the 70s. In 2023, he said someone filed 3 deeds on his home to transfer the property to a different name.
The deed to transfer title has your signature on it.
Somehow or another, but I don't know who put it on there.
Mr. Elder did not sign these documents. Absolutely none. I mean, this is stealing.
Robert lives in Georgia, where no photo ID is required to file a deed, leading fraudsters to forge transfers to steal home titles.
We'll talk about the solutions Georgia has created and the steps you can take to protect your deed.
But first, reporter Sierra Cummings takes us about 20 miles outside of Atlanta, where another family is fighting for more than just their family member's home.
This is the back of the house.
A walk around this Lithonia property.
Watch your step.
Is a somber stroll down memory lane for Trayvon Brown.
It's very emotional. I had a lot of memories, yo.
About 2 decades worth. A family home his 69-year-old Uncle Evans Lee Jr. owned. Now, the family ownership is gone, and so is Uncle Evans Lee Jr.
Every time I come here, I just want to cry, bust down and cry because he gone. That's the only person I had left in my life.
Although Evans died in 2022, the case of alleged fraud only just began to unravel.
I would like to see Mr. Watson prosecuted to the full extent.
He's talking about Randy Watson. The family filed a police report against the 43-year-old who submitted paperwork in probate court days after Uncle Evans Lee Jr. died. Randy sought to inherit whatever assets remained. This probate court petition shows Randy signed a sworn statement that he was the only child and sole heir. No additional proof or supplemental documentation was required. As a result, the probate judge appointed Randy Watson the administrator of the estate. Randy gained access to everything his father, Evans Lee Jr., left behind. Just one problem. Evans Lee was not his father. In fact, Evans Lee was no father at all. He had no kids, which means Randy Watson is not his son, not even close.
Who is he to Mr. Evans?
He's not related to him.
A certified DNA test proved it. The results show Randy is not even a family member, that there is a 0.00% chance the late Evans Lee Jr. was his dad. This was a court-ordered paternity test, which only came after the True family got wind someone filed probate paperwork on their uncle's estate before they could. Trayvon and his wife learned about it once they tried to file their own probate paperwork. After more than a year of waiting, a judge ruled in favor of Trayvon and his family, citing there was neither evidence to prove paternity nor documentation that Randy had a right to inherit anything. By the time it was proven Randy was not the so-called sole heir, and the judge ordered everything to be turned back over to the True family, it was too late.
There was never an opportunity to go in the home, clean the home out, none of that.
Cleared it all out.
Cleared it all out.
The DeKalb County home itself, foreclosed and auctioned off. Most of the belongings and sentimental items gone too. None of it as valuable as Uncle Evans Lee himself. An urn with his ashes also nowhere to be found. When officers asked, Randy told police he'd been robbed of all the items, the valuables, the money, and even Evans Lee's ashes, according to this police report. an allegation the family does not believe. Receipt records from a local disposal company in the time period Randy had access to the home. The receipts revealed items were moved from the Lithonia property at least twice last year, more than 60,000 pounds worth. The most unbelievable matter for the family begins here. Trahan maintains his uncle was adamantly against cremation, that he wanted to be buried alongside his wife.
But he was cremated.
Yeah.
And whose decision was that?
Randy Watson.
It goes back to this funeral home, FL Sims. The owner confirmed Randy Watson identified himself as the son and told the business to cremate Evans Lee Jr. The funeral home did not require proof of kinship or an ID or any other documentation. They simply took his word for it.
Is the attorney here, the director here?
No one's here.
When asked to talk about this case and its policies, the funeral home would not interview with us. There is no Georgia law that requires a funeral home to confirm if someone is truly next of kin. And because Evans Lee died while in hospice, the funeral home was tasked with completing the death certificate. Based on the information they say Randy provided to them, they filled in the death certificate, a document now riddled with false information. Decedent's son, Randy. Wrong. Again, Evans Jr. had no children. Decedent's birthplace, Nebraska. Wrong. Evans Jr. was a Louisiana native. Decedent's father's name, unknown. Wrong. Evans Lee was a junior, meaning his father shared the same name.
Because ain't nowhere in the world you could just let anybody come in your establishment and say, hey, I am the next of kin, without even checking their background and seeing if it's true.
Probate attorney James Clifton.
I've seen cases that are, absolutely heartbreaking where things like this happen because the person committing fraud, they have no care.
And it's hard even being on the property right now, just looking at it.
Evans Lee Jr. worked in construction, fixing homes, fixing problems for others. His family hopes to fix this for him.
Uncle Lee was a good man. He did a lot of things for a lot of people. Lots of people.
I reached out to Randy Watson multiple times. He did not agree to an on-camera interview, but he told us and the judge that he knew Evans Lee when he was a teenager. The DeKalb County Police Department opened a criminal investigation, and finally, this case was referred to the state licensing board to investigate the funeral home for its policies.
Sierra, since you're reporting, Georgia says it will have more protections in place for homeowners?
Yeah, that's right, Tisha. Beginning in 2025, a new Georgia law requires an ID when filing a deed. It also requires notaries to keep track of all the deeds they notarize by including dates, times, locations, and the type of identifications.
So what can homeowners do to protect themselves from a situation like this?
I spoke to a probate attorney who encourages that we have 3 documents that we secure before our death: a will, a power of attorney, and a medical directive. Since Evans Lee did not have a will, the attorney says it made exploiting the probate process easier. It feels like it's too little too late.
Right. It's unfortunate because that is oftentimes the result, is that the bad actor receives the funds, by selling the property or whatever, and then it's gone. They spend it.
In 2023, Florida enacted a law allowing clerks in Lee County to require a photo ID for a deed transfer. If the legislation is a success, the program would expand statewide after 2025. Many states and local governments have set up property registries where homeowners are alerted when paperwork is filed in their home. You can find that information at your local clerk or recorder's office.
Still ahead, lactation frustration.
But that was a hard reality for me. Why is this not as easy as it's supposed to be?
How new moms are finding support while navigating the challenge of breastfeeding.
Plus, scientists work to save a disappearing coastline. How rocks could play a role.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says it's not a matter of if sea levels will rise, it's how much. The agency estimates over the next 30 years, the sea level will rise by about 1 foot.
One state particularly invested in protecting its coast is Louisiana.
Since the 1930s, the state has lost nearly 2,000 square miles of coastline. For comparison, that's about the size of Delaware.
Now Louisiana's top coastal official says he's found a solution to the state's vanishing coastline.
Reporter John Snell shows us how rocks could come to the rescue.
On a random Friday morning in Grand Isle, the surf's up.
Oh, it would just be beating up against those camps right now.
Charter Captain Mike Guidry says rocks installed in recent months provide a new layer of protection for camps.
People always associate hurricanes with this destruction. Well, we have stronger cold fronts.
In a fight for survival, Grand Isle over the years has deployed segmented rocks. The technique has a powerful believer in the state's top coastal official.
This went through Ida.
Gordon Dove, the chairman of the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, wants to rock much of Louisiana's coast. Not some solid line of fortification, but rocks installed in segments. Currents and wave action carry sand and sediment, which make their way through gaps in the rocks and then get trapped as the waves recede. A bird's eye view shows how sand has built up in Grand Isle, effectively extending this section of beach.
As they rock everything, it'll start building back up.
You can see what these rocks did in helping sustain some of this levee system.
Versus a portion of the beach without the rocks.
This is no rocks, Grand Isle. You can see how it tore it up. My vision is to rebuild the coast through segmented breakwater rocks from Texas to Mississippi. History shows us the proof that it works.
Skeptics argue it doesn't always work. In many places, the land is so soupy, rocks simply sink.
There's certainly places where we can continue to build that out, but it's not the one solution that works everywhere.
Coastal scientist Alicia Renfro says they can be useful in some places, but cautions it's important to understand where rocks will work, where they won't, and why.
The problem with our coast is that there isn't enough sediment, and so it just is not going to work every single place. But there are places like here on Grand Isle where it would work well.
Part of it, she says, comes down to the simple geology of Louisiana, using a tool that doesn't naturally occur here.
The thing about rocks is we don't have rocks here in Louisiana. We have to go other places to get rocks, and when you put it on our wet, muddy sediments, they sink over time.
I disagree. If you have a current offshore, they work. When you use them inshore, they strictly to stabilize.
So wherever possible, it's actually great if we can use oyster reefs instead, use living shorelines that can also act as those rock barriers, but they build upon themselves over time as sea level rises.
There is no one-size-fits-all solution. At the Rockefeller State Wildlife Refuge south of Lake Charles, rocks installed as shoreline protection sank under their weight. Refuge managers solved the problem by first laying down a lighter aggregate material, then covering it with rocks. A little ingenuity, which cost $10 million per mile. Louisiana has poured more than $1 billion into restoring barrier islands. Dove wants to rebuild more of the islands and shield them with segmented rocks.
You gotta start by fortifying your defenses along your coastline.
Charting this somewhat different course would not come cheap. By Dove's estimate, about $1.5 billion.
Rising sea levels and storm surges have a South Carolina city revamping its strategy to prevent flooding. The city of Charleston says the plan involves tailoring policies down to the neighborhood level to address specific needs. The city says it's Charleston's first ever comprehensive look at flood risk management. Still ahead, the inspiration behind this piece of paradise.
Plus, many moms say they don't breastfeed as long as they'd like. How a nursing novice sought help. Breastfeeding has many health benefits for babies and their mothers. The U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends infants are exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months.
However, as many moms know, it's not so easy.
Up to 60% of mothers don't breastfeed as long as they intend to. And among the top reasons, latching and lactation.
A South Carolina woman who faced challenges of her own is sharing her journey in hopes other moms won't feel so alone.
Reporter Carrie Beal has her story.
This is Brooks. He is our first baby.
Cammie Barton says her birth experience was better than expected.
It was an amazing experience. We were really blessed.
But then she started her breastfeeding journey, and that was anything but amazing.
I think there's a big misconception that breastfeeding among first-time moms and just maybe the general public comes easy and natural to everyone, and that's just not true.
She dealt with a lot of pain, and her baby struggled to latch on.
But that was a hard reality for me. Why is this not as easy as it's supposed to be?
Barton says she almost gave up after 2 weeks, but decided to book an appointment with a Prisma Health lactation consultant.
Hey, we love you, Lord.
Who told her baby, Brooks, was struggling because he had a lip tie.
There's a piece of tissue that attaches the lip, and it just sometimes where it falls on the gum, it's really close to the gum line, and it'll cause a lot of friction, because their little lip will be tucked in.
Van Pelt works with moms to position the baby correctly.
The ear, the shoulder, and the hip all lined up, facing the mom. You don't want them to be belly up and turning their head. You want the baby completely facing the mom.
Barton got help and says whether it's a lactation consultant, your mom, an aunt, or a friend, just reach out.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out for people, and that's okay too. As long as you have a healthy baby, that really is the ultimate goal. And so I would just tell other moms, take advantage of resources. Don't feel like you are alone.
It's important to note Medicaid and most private insurance companies now cover lactation consultants.
In addition to difficulty latching, women who wish they could breastfeed longer point to other barriers. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention cites unsupportive work policies and lack of parental leave. In 2023, a federal law went into effect saying employers cannot deny employees a needed pump break. The law also mandates employers have a private place to pump and notes a bathroom is not a permissible location.
Still ahead, his backyard is his prized possession, how he hopes it can help those in need. In this neighborhood, you'll find a little slice of paradise with water, sand, and wildlife. It feels more like Florida than Wisconsin.
The man behind the marvel says that he was inspired to build it after a difficult diagnosis.
Reporter Jeff Alexander explains how he hopes to share it with those who need it most.
In a neighborhood on the southeast side of Appleton, there is a backyard you truly need to see to believe. It belongs to Dennis Nagin, along with all the birds and butterflies.
They'll be all over this, and then there's orange milkweed here too.
And the turtles, frogs, and fish.
I will throw this food out over there. Should be within minutes.
Make that seconds.
Oh, look at that.
That call this little oasis home.
It's probably not to over dramatize it or whatever, but it probably saved my life, because when I'm depressed or just the body ain't working, you just come out here and it's just like most people. You go in the woods and you just see everything that God created and you just calm. It just brings peace.
Aside from his career that included starting a business and working in healthcare management, Dennis coached basketball for decades. In 2010, just as he achieved his dream of coaching the Lawrence University women's team, he felt something wasn't right with his body.
But right away, I started noticing just things weren't right.
Doctors diagnosed Dennis with severe systemic rheumatoid arthritis, which destroys tendons and joints in the body and attacks the heart, lungs, eyes, and other organs.
I had to give up coaching, I had to give up working at a job. I had to give up most of my volunteering.
But then, out of the blue in 2013, Dennis had a vision.
One day I woke up in the middle of the night and whether it was God or whatever, said, build a pond. And I drew that note down. The next day I got up, I got pictures. I came out here with a big rope, and I laid out a rope. Everybody thought I was crazy, and I said, I want to build a pond.
So Dennis hired a local company, and within months, his pond became a reality. He named it Memory Lake in honor of his late parents. Over the last 10 years, Dennis's family and friends, especially his grandkids, have enjoyed Memory Lake, which is stocked with perch. While Dennis's initial dream for his pond is alive and well, he does still have one passionate hope for it, and he'll cover all the expense.
As God says, when you have a gift, you got to share it. This is a huge gift. My goal is always share it with somebody like Children's Hospital, Make-A-Wish Foundation. For the parents that are struggling in stress, come here for a day. Same thing, Make-A-Wish. If there's some kid that wishes they could go up north, play in a sandbox, fish. We got all that here. It's stocked with perch. So the joy that it's brought me and my family to have other people that are struggling in a hospital room that can't get to this, we're minutes away.
Dennis is praying that final wish comes true.
To get them out here or to offer this to them would mean the world to me. And it gives me then another reason for living and to feel that I'm contributing. That's big.
Gosh, it does look so peaceful there, though. He did a great job with that lake.
Beautiful flowers, animals, wildlife.
Yeah.
Everyone can enjoy it.
No doubt about that. All right, that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm T. Chappelle. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, cities policing for profit, we explain the loophole in law that allows municipalities to bolster their budgets with traffic tickets.
This is wholly counterproductive to the notion of police protecting and serving, and instead turns police into revenue collectors for themselves and for the town.
Plus, the solutions one state implemented to prevent officers from stacking up citations.